Heavy, heavy, heavy. Okay. Welcome to my IBM tower project. I've been collecting videos on getting this thing up and running and upgraded over the last 6 or so months. And I think there's enough material now to start the series and introduce you to various aspects of my little restoration project. So I decided to divide this up into various pieces, some dealing with everyone's favorite on these machines, floppy drive restorations, then getting internal storage up and running, adding other storage options like the CD-ROM drive, and just in general, memory, cleaning, and what else we might find in here. So, without further ado, let's get this started, and I hope you'll enjoy. Let's get back to our next big project. And I'm not exaggerating when I say big project that I already started, but this heavy machine, and I will probably kick the camera a little bit, coming up here next. Ooh! There we go. Man, I don't even know where I will put the monitor. Let's have a quick look. Now, I've opened it up and disassembled it partially. The drive cage is already out. That was a bit of a nasty enterprise, getting all of that disassembled without destroying anything. Now this here is the pass-through cable for an expansion card here that will ultimately enable connecting up a 5¼ inch external drive. That is the sole purpose of this thing here. There are two hard drives in it, MFM or RLL, I don't know. Those we'll probably try next. This thing seems to be the only one that's connected. That one is just sitting there. No power connected, only this one here is connected to power. They're probably dead, and we'll use some alternative storage, like one of those SD card or compact flash kind of adapter. The problem with using one of these is going to be, this is IDE. There's a notable lack of IDE connectivity in this machine here. The power supply, since we've already managed to power this up, we know is working. Might want to open this up at some point to see if there's any reefer capacitors or anything else in here. At least it'll have the dust blown out. But also when I took it out the first time, some of the standoffs that just broke off. But then there's this handle here that you can simply lift this out with. And this is 207 watts. How interesting. 207 watts. Here are those standoffs that I mentioned that are just broken off, and I think I can probably just super glue those back in. Love that it has that red chunky power button, which the later models don't have anymore. So I replaced it with a white one, I believe. Little battery here to hold system settings next to the speaker. And there you can also already start to see the nightmare we'll have to deal with, which is taking all that nasty foam out. And I shouldn't be touching this, but it's disintegrating. So if you touch it, whoop, it'll just fall to pieces, disintegrates to dust, and it won't reform into its original shape. So that all has to come out. Why don't we try to see if we can get this drive to power up. Alright, error while writing test area on fixed disk. So we'll leave that for now, but we'll continue with the disassembly, cleaning things up, and getting this back into a nice and hopefully almost new shape. I don't know how much that weight is, but it is heavy. I love these little connectors here. They're pretty simple. You can find them on eBay, or I think Texelec makes these as well. They all work equally well until you can get the original drive kind of tested, fixed if needed, and working again. If not, use these. And I have some ideas on how to kind of get that original eject button out and maybe replace it with one that is more PS2 like. There are screws at the bottom of those expansion cards that hold them in. And they're kind of like thumb screws, or you can use just a flathead screwdriver if they don't want to cooperate. And then yeah, you have these nifty little tabs where you simply can pull out the cards here and here. Carefully slide that out. That's probably why the screw didn't move, because I actually didn't bother screwing that in. I wonder if that just slides forward. So let's loosen those, and we already established that it doesn't really spin up. But yeah, I might give this another try and see if there's something with the bearing that we can do to fix. Okay, this comes loose. Just need to detach the ground cable. Well, duh. You know what? We don't even have to remove it because the cable just comes off that little connector here. Duh. Okay, but that also seems to have loosened the drive, so it'll just come out. And can I lift it through here? Yes, please. Okay. Okay, next we'll try the drive cage itself. I should make it more of a habit to label where those screws come from or keep them with the relevant components, because I have a bunch of heaps of screws somewhere on my workspace, but I just don't remember where they belong to anymore. Okay, now this lifts out, and there is a little kind of holder in the back that goes in here. This is where the screws from the side panel screw into. There is memory in here. That's the onboard one, and it is connected with plastic clips, so I don't think I want to remove it. It works. I know I do want to maybe clean the contacts at some point, but oh well, why bother? Let's try and gently pull this out. Yes, this is somewhat keyed. The speaker and battery assembly itself, I think, just pops out by lifting it up. Pull any tabs or anything. No, it just comes up like this. 34 millivolts. I do have a replacement here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Did I count this already? Screws. So let's get these out. Okay, perfect, it's coming out. 80 to 86, 10, so 10 megahertz. Okay, a few more things. This one here has some of the bits plastic welded on, so I just took the flush cutters and got that off. A little tip, put something over it like a cloth or something while you're cutting them, because they will fly off and then disappear. Don't use your hand. I tried that once and it hit it pretty hard, and that hurt a little bit. This piece here, it looked like it had some screws from this side here, but of course there were like labels on the other side, and so I used a flat kind of blade to start getting into one of the corners here, and then some heat to gently pry them off. And I mean, they're a little bit warped, so I have to figure out how to kind of get them back into shape, maybe use an iron to flatten them out again. We now have these screws here exposed. There was nothing in the middle, although there's an opening here, so we can hopefully simply take these off. Yes, okay, so they're coming out. I want to get rid of all of the metal components so I can wash this pretty thoroughly, get all the grime off. that this has been accumulating since when? Were these things built? Okay, last one. Whoops. And that fell off. Yep. Some rust behind there that we want to get rid of as well. What you have to do here is, so there were some screws in here obviously as well, but again, some plastic welded here, here, and here. They still wouldn't come off. You have to get rid of all of the slot covers in order for that to come up like this. And that is the last, well, not the last, but tricky metal component to be removed. And then I think the last one that we have is those feet. Yep, 10 millimeters. I think it's millimeters. So let's see which way these things come out. Ah, okay. Counterclockwise. And they're pretty rusty, so I'll probably give them a little bath in some rust remover. That should just come off now as is. Yes. And then we can wash these as well. There's some gross stuff everywhere. So that stuff back there is what's, you see, if you press that in, it doesn't decompress. So this is toast and falling apart. Oops, yeah, this is just coming off. Okay, at least this isn't the gooey stuff that's on the side panel. Alright, we'll get my little mini vacuum cleaner. Two methods I can use: the usual IPA, isopropyl alcohol, or I sometimes find that this thing works pretty well. It has a nice kind of orangey smell to it, and it's not as nasty as some other solvents like denatured alcohol, or there's another, is it called Goo Gone or something? It's pretty solventy in terms of what it smells like. That one you'll have to clean up with alcohol because it leaves some kind of oily stuff behind, but let's try this on just a test surface here real quick. But is this doing anything? Doesn't look like it. Just dab it on here. Okay, at least that rest of that foamy stuff seems to come off, but not whatever that green stuff is underneath. Ew, gross. Yummy, it's like some oil slick. Well, I finally gave up on the soft methods and did go with some scraping with metal implements. And as you can see, hopefully better when I turn on a little bit more light, is that this, you can still see where the stuff has been. That glue leached into the plastic. I've cleaned this with an old toothbrush, I scraped away, I used the nasty goof off, which really stinks, and I would recommend not using that inside if you can avoid it. But this is completely smooth now. I mean, if I'm going over this a few more times with that nasty stuff here, I might be able to get it off, but this is good enough. And so this is now ready to go into the sink. Okay, here's the nastier of the two pieces. This is the side panel. And this, same quality, but this stuff here just turns into goo. And it sticks. And it's yucky, gross. So let's try and get this stuff off as well. Really gross. I even glued over the vents here. Alright, the rest came off pretty easily, and I did try denatured alcohol for that. So I simply put a little bit on that material, let it soak for a little bit, and then used this to scrape it off. I'm sure a somewhat better spudger than this would have been able to do that as well. I might try a little piece of sandpaper on some of the green things like this, where the foam has turned this green. Okay, this is ready for the sink. Alright, this thing is in the sink because it's the beast it is. It doesn't fit 100%, so we'll have to do this in stages. Now, to cover up those various metal pieces in here, there's various things I've tried. One is Play-Doh, and I don't and can't recommend this stuff. It's just too soft, and it's pretty hard to get that out of the screw holes here, especially when they're threaded. It just gets stuck in there, and then you have to deal with that mess afterwards. What works a little bit better if you have to can on smaller pieces is put it in the freezer for a bit. It hardens and makes it a little bit easier to remove, but no, I do not recommend this. So back in the tub it goes, and there it stays. Blue tack, kind of similar, but a little bit harder and sturdier. Works a little bit better, but similar thing, especially with threaded holes. It's kind of hard to remove afterwards. Also the Play-Doh, I should add, doesn't play well with water. It seems to almost kind of get soft and dissolve in it. And for anything where you want to use hydrogen peroxide and cover up these things, it definitely just almost dissolves within like 10 minutes, and then the effects are lost. So what I'm going to do here is just put a little bit of painter's tape over the holes. Okay, got them all. So let's give this a little bit of a soak. Okay, so I'm just giving this a bit of a pat down to avoid any sort of water stains from forming. And now I'll just put this on the side to let it dry. Alright, next up is the power supply. I'm trying to get this open. Might not actually need any work unless we find any kind of cracking reefers or other bulging capacitors in there. Got a bit of dust, so we'll give this a good clean inside and out. And of course, operating in power supplies, you have to be careful because there may be residual charges left. Let's start with this power first. We may not need to unscrew everything depending on the state of things. So now we'll use some IPA. I'll spray that on here, and then go in there and try and pick up some of that grime. So there's bits and pieces that are accumulating in there. Let's give this a little touch up. It's not much. Let's put this all back together. Now we're going to put in the power switch, and I hope it's the right way around. I'm just picking the orientation with the least amount of tension. Okay, ready for the next step. We are ready to put components back into the chassis. We've taken out a few pieces of metal that had been kind of riveted in there through the melted plastic bolts, like this piece here. There's four kind of pieces here that want to be glued in back, and I'm just going to use some epoxy for this. This is gray, and we'll mix it. This is mixed up. Now we'll put very generous amounts of that on here while I hold it down with not again my finger. Okay, those two are done, and now we're putting those on top to hold down the metal. In this case, I think more is better, not less is more. So now we'll let this sit for a while. Don't necessarily want to disturb it too much so it can cure. And in the meantime, let's have a look at some of the planned expansions. Alright, so while we wait for all of this to cure, let's have a look at some of the like expansion and other kind of things, pieces, additions that I have lined up for this beauty. First of all, let me make sure I have all of my components lined up here. Yes, so that battery here is obviously toast, and so I have a replacement here readily available, so we'll swap this out so we can keep date and time settings for this machine. How exciting. The other thing I have is this beautiful little mouse. Not tested yet, but I might actually want to experiment running OS2 on this thing. We'll see if that works, or at least an older version of Windows. So a mouse is definitely required for this, and I think this is maybe, hopefully, somewhat period appropriate. It certainly has that look. But then I also have the blank faceplate here for the missing kind of hard drive bay cover, and I've yet to figure out kind of what paint I need to use for this so it matches the rest of this lovely beige thing. If you know what kind of paint I should use, please let me know in the comments. Be grateful. One expansion that I already briefly tried out is this kind of memory expansion board, and it works. It is RamQuest 5060 Orchid 1987, and I believe this is 2 megabytes of RAM. It does not need one of those driver files. Yeah, here's the Orchid logo back here. It is in good shape, very clean, works. So that's definitely going to make it into the machine. Now, another one that I have to play around with is a network card. And oh, I love these kind of blue bits that these machines are so known for, the blue accents, where you can kind of lift and push to get them into their slot properly. Something most, if any of those RSA cards don't have. Anyway, network card by 3Com as printed here and here. I have not tried this out yet. I don't know if it works. That is the transceiver. So that would plug into the AUI port here, and then RJ45 cable goes in here. This beauty here, it was shipped in this original IBM carton. It is, oh well, there goes the sticker. Another Ethernet adapter. This one is complete, and boy does that look shiny and brand new. And I wish you could smell this, but it does have that new thing smell still on it. That's amazing. Yummy. The reason I got that is it does have the RJ45 connector on here. Sound cards, especially original ones for the MCA architecture, are notoriously hard to come by or expensive, and so there are projects like Snarkbugger, I believe it's called, to rebuild Sound Blaster capable modules, and I've got another one of those clones here, which is the Resound New Wave MCA. I got this from TechSelect, no sponsoring. And hopefully, if this works, this will equip us with some lovely... and then I do have end pieces that I printed in blue as well that might fit this thing. Oh yes, wonderful. That definitely fits here. Haha. So I can make this look a little bit more IBM-y. Let's address storage. I do have those two wonderful MFM drives. Only one of them kind of works. The other one seems to be completely unresponsive. What are we going to do? ESDI? Not an option either, because there's not a lot of functioning drives around here. So again, there's some clever people that managed to port the XTIDE infrastructure onto MCA, and so we have Mac IDE or MC IDE, and so this is an MCA card that has the XT IDE ROM installed and gives us some basic IDE channels that we can play with. So two here, channel A, channel B, two devices each in primary, secondary kind of configuration, and has a power outlet as well. I think there's also a version with a compact flash adapter here, but what we're probably going to do is connect one of these pieces up to it. So they'll either be mounted internally or uses up another slot. What else? We're not done yet. We always need more memory, or would like to have more memory. So what I have here is a Kingston branded, and there used to be some sticker from another, probably OEM, I don't know, on here. So this should be able to give us another 4, 8, 12, 16 maybe megabytes of RAM. And I do have what I believe are the matching RAM sticks here. Let's do a quick visual match, but yes, they should fit. So yeah, hopefully we can get that working. You do need ADF files for that, and most of those other cards, except for this memory expansion card. We have a few more things, not just one, two. This one here, speaking of storage, and that is a SCSI adapter. Adaptec, I think, is probably the manufacturer of the main chipset, IBM FRU 15F6561. And it does have an external connector here, but more interested in the internal one here to potentially run hard drives, maybe a SCSI 2SD or a Zulu SCSI off of that. So that's a possibility. Now we come to the last one, and that is an XGA2 graphics card. And so this hopefully should give us some extended graphics capabilities. So higher resolutions, more colors at higher resolutions. Does have kind of a standard VGA port. We'll give these all a clean and try and test them out. But yeah, I'm excited to have a lot of these fancy upgrades in the machine. I can already hear some of you complaining in the comments about this configuration, because yes, you are right, some of these are 32-bit cards. What the hell am I doing with these in a 16-bit system? That is also something that I might have a solution for. What are we going to do next? I believe it's time to put in the motherboard, or planar, as IBM would like to call it. And we're going to go ahead with the 386 module installation, because I do want to use some of those 32-bit cards and Now we'll see if for some miracle those retaining clips still work. Yes! Alright, first test fit, and well, walk through a few issues. The first one, obviously, battery is new, and so it's asking to, obviously setting time and date, that seems to be normal. Reference disk is in. Some other things from the installation, that power cable here is pushing a little bit against that second RAM module. I have something in between to prevent them from touching. And I did manage to get the power button installed incorrectly. It's, as you can see, running, but in position 0, so I have to open that up and turn that around. Now I've also tried using the original floppy drive, this one here, which through a floppy disk error doesn't work, so I'll have to start by replacing all of those capacitors and see if that makes a difference. They'll surface mount, I believe, and hopefully this is all of them. Not too surprised if you look closely. I don't know if you can see that, but there's definitely something that looks like corrosion on that pad here. So we'll see if we can rescue this thing, or if we have to continue to use kind of an original one with this adapter. It says automatic configuration is run, so hopefully on the next try it shouldn't complain with any error codes anymore. Excellent, no error codes, hooray. First test run, a few things to fix. I'll start by obviously putting the kind of power button back into its proper position, and give the floppy drive repair a try and see where that brings us. And then we'll start adding expansion cards and see how that goes. Alright, I think this is a great place to stop after all the chassis case has been cleaned, things put back together. In the next episode, I think we'll be looking at some storage upgrades, since the MFM drives don't really work anymore, and so we'll be playing around with a few options and see which one we'll ultimately use for this machine. So I hope this was interesting so far, and you join me in the next episode. Thank you for watching.